Okay. My name is Jack, or at least that's what I go by. You can see the username is Flutterjack Dash, but Jack is a lot easier. Uh, so I'm going to do a couple of story reviews. I'm going to start on some little short one-shots. As you can see here, I have found one called The Great and Deathless Trixie. Let me read the description here. Trixie's line of work is dangerous, but she's a careful show pony, and that's why she's only died a few dozen times in her career. She thinks this is normal. So, it's 2,000 words. It might have been part of a contest, or just as somebody decided to write an exactly 2,000 word short fic. Who knows? By Blargalt. I will, let's see here. Okay. This is Blargalt. I fooled you. I fooled you. I got horse stories. I got horse stories. I got all horse stories. Good. That's the good stuff. All right. Let's get a shot to Trixie. All right. And for my next trick, the great and powerful Trixie will perform her greatest feat yet. Trixie disappeared, the smoke clearing too early to reveal her running off stage to the right. Starlight Glimmer watched from the crowd, sipping from her favorite cup. Trixie had been working on a new routine for a while, but was mum on the actual details. Grunts of strain came from the stage as Trixie reappeared from the right, pushing against a giant crate of fireworks. Much larger than her usual stash, Glimmer couldn't help but worry about a few of the rockets being black with pony skulls and crossbones stamped on the side. That can't be a good sign. Okay. For this trick, Trixie declared, the great and powerful Trixie will need a volunteer, the strongest pony in the crowd. She scanned her audience and pointed out to a large shadow in the front. You there. Come on stage. Bulk Biceps lifted above the crowd, already hyped. He threw himself onto the wooden platform, making sure to show off his muscles to the audience. Trixie faced the audience as she talked. You seem like a pretty strong pony. Yeah. Strong enough to, say, move this big box of fireworks? Yeah. Then go ahead. Push it as hard as you can. Bulk screamed with joy, throwing his entire mass at the box. It didn't budge. He beat his wings, throwing what wing power he had into his push. The box remained stubborn. He finally ran back, getting a running start, and then throwing his entire shoulder at the box. He continued to struggle, finally, pitifully beating at it with his hooves. Okay. So I'm getting feedback from at least one viewer that the sound quality is good, so that's a good thing. Um, Sorry, so that slowed me down, but no big deal. Pretty hard, huh? She asked. Would you like some help? He nodded, fat tears in his eyes. I'm loving the way that descriptors are used in this so far. Many more ponies were called up to the stage, trying to help Bulk Biceps move the crate even an inch. They knew it was possible. They'd seen Trixie just push it on stage. Even when Applejack came up to assist, the box remained obstinate. Such a strong vocabulary here. You see, Trixie explained as the ponies continued to push the box. This box is invincible to normal ponies. However, the great and powerful Trixie knows its secret and will defeat it in front of your very eyes. She shooed her volunteers off the stage. Walking behind the crate, it slowly rose, Trixie coming up from below it, balancing the giant crate on her hooves. See? Nothing beyond the crate. The box crashed down on her. The stage groaned, and a second later the wooden floor of the stage gave way, the crate going halfway in before hitting the ground underneath. The impact set off one of the fireworks inside. Okay. And soon a fireball engulfed the entire makeshift theater as ponies ran for cover from the wayward rockets. Starlight did her best to protect the ponies threatened, but as the arsenal of fireworks emptied itself, her thoughts turned to the magician. Trixie, she called out, running to the burnt husk of the stage. She lifted the blackened crate from the hull. She saw her worst fear. There was barely anything left, nothing but a smoking crater in its center. The color drained from her face, and she stumbled backwards, unable to believe what had just happened. The great and powerful Trixie, her friend, was dead. Glimmer had been wandering Ponyville in a depressed haze for the last few days, still in shock. The first pony to truly understand her had her life snuffed out, just like that. Twilight had told her they would do everything they could to make sure she got a proper burial, even have Celestia give her eulogy. But that wouldn't bring her back. Nothing would. She sat at one of the trees in Ponyville's park, blankly staring ahead. This was the greatest pain she'd ever known, a deep, dull, wrenching abyss in her soul that would never heal. She couldn't even work up the effort to cry most times. A part of her had died with the show pony. Trixie walked by the tree, a half-finished sandwich floating in front of her. "Hi, Starlight," she said. "Hi, Trixie," Starlight, Glimmer flatly replied. Between the shock, grief, the first seeds of an evil plan being hatched to abuse the time magic and reverse Trixie's death, and more grief, it took Glimmer a good 10 minutes to process who she'd just talked to. When it hit her, she sprung up with a wild gleam in her eye. "Trixie!" By then, the magician was well out of sight. Maybe it was all a hallucination, but she had to make sure. She ran from the park, headed towards the site of Trixie's wagon. When she arrived, she brought her back hoofs down and screeched across the ground upon seeing the sight of Trixie in the window of her wagon, reading the newspaper, while finishing the remains of the sandwich. The grief in her heart melted, replaced by pure joy. Her vision became blurry, and her heart nearly jumped into her throat as she ran over. Trixie only noticed her at the last second, and the surprise from Glimmer's sudden bear hug made her drop her sandwich. "Trixie," Glimmer sobbed, I couldn't... How did you... I was so... Trixie tried to hide her disgust or surprise. Hi?" She'd had... Oops. You doubled your past tense here. Only because of the way that the sentence is about to structure. She'd had completely broken down, her words incomprehensible as she just cried her way through the suffocating hug. Minutes passed until she was finally finished, looking up to her friend with red eyes and a runny nose. The show pony still kept her reserved demeanor. "Starlight, are you okay?" Glimmer sniffed. "What do you mean, are you okay? I thought you died." Trixie stared at her with a raised eyebrow. "Yeah, obviously. You don't really survive a box crushing you and then exploding." Glimmer shook her head. "Wait, what?" "I can't tell you how the trick works, trade secret and all that, but yeah, I kind of messed up at the end. Totally ruined the routine." The routine? You were crushed. I saw your corpse." Trixie rolled her eyes. "Duh. No need to rub it in. Besides, I know what I did wrong, and I'll get it right next time." Glimmer's elation faded to confusion. "Trixie, did you come back to life?" "Okay," Trixie muttered in an annoyed tone. "Is this some weird Ponyville holiday called State the Obvious Day? Did Pinky invent it?" She would be the one. "Trixie," Glimmer shouted, "ponies don't just come back to life." Trixie sighed. "Oh, so now it's opposite day. What's gotten into you?" Glimmer needed a new approach. "So, after you died, when did you come back?" The unicorn tapped her chin and thought. Actually, now that I think of it, I don't think I've ever actually died in Ponyville before. Maybe you weren't used to my return time. Sorry about that. I guess it was a day after I got crushed." "A day?" "I know, a whole day, right? Really inconvenient. I don't know. How long does it usually take you?" "Trixie, ponies don't just come back after they die." "What are you talking about?" You've had... Okay. Sometimes the grammar's a little off, but the story is still pretty cool so far. "You've had to have died plenty of times." "What? I've never died. Lucky you." "Sadly, some ponies have to work for a living, and sometimes you have to spend life to make life. I think I read that in a book." They were going in circles. Glimmer's patience ran dry, and she yanked Trixie from the wagon with her magic. "Hey," Trixie protested. "What are you doing? We're going to Twilight's and figuring this out." Trixie stood still as Twilight studied the readouts from the machine she was hooked to. When they first showed up at the castle doors, the Princess of Friendship was almost as overjoyed at Trixie's survival as Glimmer was. But her glee very quickly turned into scientific curiosity. "I don't get it," Trixie complained. "Is this a prank?" Twilight looked up from the readout. "Trixie, I need you to tell me about the first time you died." She laughed. "Oh, every pony remembers their first time. I was just starting my magic act for the first time, and my wagon fell on top of me when I stopped to camp. Anything else? I came back a day later. My wagon was wrecked too, which was probably the worst part. Too bad those don't come back, right? The doors to the throne room burst open to starlight glimmer, a stack of old news clippings suspended next to her. I'm back, she announced, and I think you're going to want to read this. She plopped the stack onto the mat, pulling one of the clippings and holding it in front of Twilight. She grabbed it and read it aloud. Mayor perishes in failed water stunt. Her eyes drifted to the picture showing Trixie floating in a chain-shut glass tank of water, legs wrapped in rope and tied to a cinder block at the bottom. Her tongue floated outside her mouth, two X marks in place of her eyes, because the cartoon equality. Trixie nervously shifted on the seat. Escapology's a lot harder than it looks. Learned that the hard way. Twilight grabbed another clipping. Magician bites it by swallowing swords. That's a great headline. Not professional by any stretch, but it's a great headline. The picture depicted Trixie's corpse on its back in the middle of the stage, 10 swords lodged in its mouth. Yikes. Should have stopped at 9. Show pony's Iron Maiden becomes a coffin. She looked at the picture and instantly regretted it. Not my best work. Twilight put down the clippings. Trixie, how many times have you died? Trixie looked up, pondering. Why would I keep count of that? I guess a few dozen since I started touring. Few times I got burned at the stake as a witch. One town did it twice. Jerks. So when you tried that trick with the manticore, what was that? If I didn't do it right, I'd lose a whole day. Motivation to do the stunt correctly. Good thing Glimmer was there to help, huh? Twilight smiled through the grit of her teeth. Sure, Trixie. Anything else you want to add? Trixie was completely oblivious to the aura of anger building up around Twilight. Not much. Fred, who's Fred? The manticore. Fred probably ate me 3 times in practice. It was Glimmer's turn for questions. Trixie, do you not understand the power you have? I don't follow. Other ponies can't do this, Trixie. When creatures die, that's it. They're gone forever. Trixie took her time to process this. Seriously? Yes. How do you not know this? I just assumed every pony comes back. It's not like I ever stayed around long enough in one place to keep track of ponies reviving. So you're saying I'm the only one who comes back to life? As far as we know. Are you absolutely sure you don't know why you can cheat death? I'm actually great and powerful? Twilight threw the news clippings into the air and jumped off her seat. I give up. That fast? I mean, I guess after Pinkie Pie. She walked out of the room, slamming the double doors behind her. Still, Trixie continued, finding this out about myself opens up some very interesting paths in the world of stage magic. Starlight Glimmer stood out in the crowd. One hoof held to her face. Why did she show up? Come one, come all, and be amazed at the literal death-defying act of the great and deathless Trixie. Trixie appeared on stage at a puff of glittering smoke. On both sides of the stage was nearly every weapon known to pony kind. Crossbows, rockets, spears, bombs, a manticore on a catapult, a live Tesla coil, a cannon, and a wide assortment of other deadly devices pointed directly at her. She stood in the center next to a large lever. The Tesla coil. Is this inspired by the Prestige? With a push of this switch, Trixie shall exit this mortal coil and return to you all in a day's time. One of the ponies in the back echoed, I thought you were going to drink lava. That's Friday's show. Now behold. Trixie kicked the lever, and all the weapons around her fired at once. She was killed instantly. The crowd went wild. Author in his note. And now with a Spanish translation by Spaniard Kiwi. Cool! I'm going to give this an upvote because it deserves that. I like it. It's not... The author and the writing aren't at all bothered to try to explain this phenomenon. Just toy with it. And, of course, Trixie, with her showmanship, promptly turns it into this spectacle. It's not unexpected from her. It's. I like that it's treated as an absolute. If it were a long fic, it might be given an explanation and a potentially tragic outcome. But this is treated as comedy gold, and I loved it. It's a good story. It is well worth the read. And I guess it wasn't necessarily a contest piece. So there you go. All right. Next, we have A horse of a different color. It's an ordinary day in Ponyville until Applejack says Twilight is purple. She should have known better. Uh, this, this is on top. I went with I went with top all time, but I'm not sure that's what I'm actually getting. Because there's no real organization based on upvotes. Uh, Potentially there, no. Comments is going the other way. It's not making sense. All right, A Horse of a Different Color by Empty Shelf. We're going to go look at the profile for Empty Shelf. Oh, I'm going to follow you, for crying out loud. All right, Empty Shelf with one story, but it's high rated. Okay, you're oh, now that's confusing. Remember, since June 12th, 2016, but your first story here, this was published August 20th, 2018. Now I am baffled. Oh, no, I'm not baffled. I am reading so long ago and I'm not realizing it. So, okay. I don't know what it's doing there, but doesn't matter. I'm reading this thing. A minor disagreement. It was a it was perfectly normal day in town of Ponyville. All right. Sorry. Did that because of the kind of broken English feel of that first sentence, but let's see what happens with the rest of them. That on its own is no indicator of the quality of the story. It is just a perfectly harmless typo, one missing letter out of a whole sentence. So it doesn't define the rest of the story. The sky was a rich blue, the grass a vibrant green, and even the dirt seemed to be a particularly dirty today. Or at least it seemed that way to Twilight Sparkle, who was taking the opportunity to soak in the familiar sights and sounds. After spending almost a week in Candlelight visiting her parents, Twilight was so eager to return home that she almost flew directly there rather than wait for her train. Of course, there was nothing wrong with Candlelight. She had fond memories of living in the city, when she had lifted her head out of her books long enough to take notice of it, and she had many friends there these days, not to mention her family and the princesses. But looking at it now, it just seemed dull. She'd taken for granted how the sound of ponies walking, talking, and going about their lives became a flat, unintelligible buzzing in the capital. How the self-important citizens always replied with the same dreary talking points about local gossip every time she tried to strike up a conversation. And perhaps worst of all, the same white and gold color scheme for every building. Oh, sure, some of the higher class establishments opted for marble instead of stucco siding, and the more daring establishments would feature a slightly more colorful entrance, but compared to the warm, earthy colors of Ponyville, it might as well have been black and white. She did feel a bit guilty about leaving Spike behind, but she had been dreading the arrival day for CanterCon ever since she promised him he could go. When her parents had offered to chaperone in her place, allowing her to come back to Ponyville 3 days early, though, she jumped at the chance. She consoled herself with the thought that that he was probably having the time of his life, just not getting to share it with his sister, Twilight. Hey, Twilight. Oh, Twilight. Hey, Twilight. Twilight grinned as the familiar voice called out to her, and she trotted through the market to Applejack's stall, where her friend was waving her over. This, she thought, is the thing I missed most while I was in Canterlot. Good morning, Applejack, she said cheerfully as she caught the orange farmer. That is, a farmer who is orange, not a farmer that farmed oranges. That is an important distinction to be made here. In a quick hug. How have you been while I've been gone? Me? Applejack chuckled and leaned over his stall. Why, I can't complain, except that maybe things have been a mite quiet while y'all been gone. Quiet? Ponyville? Perish the thought. The two shared a laugh, and Twilight gave Applejack a mock serious look. And what? You expect things to explode now that I'm back or something? Applejack leaned her head around Twilight to look behind her with a grin. Something like that. Twilight frowned and started to turn. What are you? Eee! I have no idea if I did that right. Twilight bit back a shout as Rarity squealed directly into her ear. Oof! And she whirled around to see the dressmaker trotting excitedly from hoof to hoof. Twilight, you're back, and so early. From Canterlot. At that, Rarity cast her gaze to the golden city and threw a hoop across her brow. Oh, how I wish I were with you at that wonderful center of culture. Tell me, how was it? Rarity, Twilight replied flatly. You have a store in Canterlot. You were there 3 days ago. We had lunch. Oh, but so much can happen in 3 days, and I want to hear all about it. In fact, why don't you come with me, and I can put together an ensemble to commemorate your return? Another dress? Twilight asked incredulously as Rarity began herding her towards her home, though she couldn't bring herself to say no. Well, you are a princess, darling, Rarity replied, resolutely cutting off her means of escape. You simply must have a royal wardrobe. Applejack chuckled as Twilight stared back at her helplessly. Don't fight it, Twilight. Just let her get Gussie up, and afterwards you'll be back to your old purple sail. Lavender, darling. Applejack blinked. No thanks. I already ate. No, Rarity said, stopping her corralling Twilight, turning to face Applejack. The color, lavender. That would be the color of lavenders, and our dear Twilight here. Applejack shrugged. Ain't lavenders purple? Well, yes, but they're a particular shade of purple, and what color Twilight is, it's called lavender. So she's still purple. You're just giving it a fancy name. Lavender is hardly an obscure nomenclature, and while purple isn't technically incorrect, lavender is simply more correct. Lilac. The lavender alicorn started trying to catch her friend's eyes. Girls, she said nervously, we're getting a little off topic, aren't we? Unfortunately, neither one was paying any attention, having begun to stalk towards each other as the volume of their discussion, being very generous in calling this a discussion, grew. Sounds like a bunch of frou-frou nonsense, if you ask me. You're just being, what's that word? Pedromantic. Oh. I love it. Oh, hold on. Yeah, I believe it's not as easy these days. Either there ain't just nearly as many people actually on to do it, or the standards have so drastically changed from back then. Or both. All right. So, Rarity brought a hoof to her foot. That's pedantic, Applejack, and no, I'm not. It's important to call things by their proper name, after all. And she's clearly lavender. Lilac. By now, the two were about an inch from literally butting heads. Their gazes locked, which means Rarity's horn should be impaled into Applejack's forehead. I recognize, Rarity said with a smile that showed off far too many teeth, that an occupation such as yours doesn't lend itself to the study of color differentiation, but I can assure you that, in my professional opinion, Twilight Sparkle is lavender. Oh, really? Applejack shot back with a scowl. I went with the wrong voice there. Oh, really? Applejack shot back with a scowl. I'll have you know that I got a pretty good pair of eyes in my head. You know how many colors of apples there are? I say she's purple, and that's all there is to it. Lilac. Both mares turned to face Fluttershy. I knew it! Whose voice had finally risen to the level of easily audible, and who was now cringing back from their combative glances. Oh, sorry. Just forget I said anything. You two look like you're very busy. And oh my, look at the time. Nope, Applejack said, throwing a foreleg around Fluttershy's withers and pinning the Pegasus in place. You sound like you got something to say. Spit it out, Sugar Cube. Fluttershy pawed timidly at the dirt, then took a deep breath. Well, you see, I always thought, that is, it always seemed to me that Twilight might be kind of, sort of, a teensy-weensy bit lilac-colored. Rarity frowned. Lilac? Well, that's certainly a more appropriate description than purple, she said, ignoring Applejack's renewed glare. But you really should call her lavender, as that's by far the most accurate. That cannot be argued. Missing a space between this period and the that. Oh, I'm sorry. Were we arguing? Fluttershy shrank back from Applejack's embrace and tried to slip away. You win. I'll just... Now, hold on there, partner, Applejack barked, tightening her grip and pulling the sub-audibly protesting Fluttershy back to her side. There ain't no need to be pushy, Rarity. Fluttershy here was just saying her piece, same as you. Nothing says she has to be kowtowing to your opinion, is there? Twilight let out a sigh of relief as an opportunity to diffuse the situation presented itself. That's right. Everyone has au contraire, Rarity broke in, her eyes gleaming as they locked onto Applejack. Our dear Twilight is a princess, and we are all of us quite influential in our own right. So it's important that we not allow incorrect information to spread. I was merely trying to remedy your transgression before it got out of hand. All I did was say she's pink. Well, now, Pinky, you're very wrong. What? Oh, my goodness. Twilight reared up with a choked-off screech as Pinkie Pie popped out from underneath her. Her mind quickly passed over the disturbing questions of when, why, and how she got under there, because it's way better to not try to think about that. Instead of latching on to Pinkie's sudden declaration, "Pink," she repeated as she returned to oral force. "Pink, pink, pink. Don't be ridiculous, Rarity scoffed. Pinkie Pie, how on earth did you arrive at such a bizarre conclusion?" Pinkie giggled. "Well, you see, I was walking down the street and I heard you say lavender, and then Applejack said, no thanks, I already ate, and then you said, you can skip past that part, Pinkie." Twilight said dryly. "Okie dokie," Pinkie chirped. And then Rainbow said, "Can't you see that she's ivory?" "That's not true. I mean, Rarity's kind of closer to that." And then Twilight is like, "Oops, sorry, I skipped too far ahead." That fourth wall thing of hers, that weird physics-defying discord envy type of thing. Well, you girls look like you were having fun, so I thought I should try, and the first thing I thought of was pink, naturally. Applejack scratched her head, turning to look first at Twilight, then Pinkie, then Twilight, then Pinkie. Then she looked at Twilight one more time before shaking her head. "I hate to say it, Pinkie, but I don't think Twilight is pink. I mean, just look at her." Pinkie squinted her eyes and leaned in for a better look, while Twilight did her best to lean away from the uncomfortable scrutiny. Maybe a dark pink?" Applejack shook her head with a sigh. "No, I think you're barking up the wrong tree there, Pinkie." Now, Applejack," Rarity... Whoops, there's a missing punctuation here. Rarity said mockingly. "There's no need to be pushy." Dagnabbit, Rarity. It ain't the same and you know it. You might be picky about what to color, but every pony here can say that she's purple. Violet. Okay, Violet. 5 pairs of eyes looked up to see a low-hanging cloud with a rainbow-colored tail hanging over the edge. "Say something, Rainbow," Applejack called up at it. Rainbow Dash leaned out overhead and glared down at the group. "Yeah, see, I was just chilling up here trying to catch some Z's, but I'm being kept awake by the sound of how wrong you all are." I'm loving that attitude. Applejack's eyes narrowed. "Come again?" Rainbow rolled her eyes and flew down from the cloud until she hovered inches above the ground. "It just so happens that I know a thing or two about color," she said, giving her rainbow mane a tussle. "And what you apparently don't know is that purple is a made-up color. The word you're all looking for is violet." "The heck you talking about, Rainbow?" Applejack said. "Ain't violet just another word for purple?" "Nope," Rainbow answered smugly. "Purple is a mix of red and blue that kind of looks like violet, but it's not the real thing. Violet is the real deal. You don't got to mix anything. It's just there. So unless Twilight's coat is actually 2 colors mixed together, then she isn't purple." "But isn't green a mix of blue and yellow?" Fluttershy asked innocently. "Does that mean green is a made-up color?" "Not in the light spectrum. That's a primary color in the light spectrum." That's different." "Oh, really?" Applejack pressed. "How so?" "It's, complicated?" "Yeah, really, really complicated and technical. So, you wouldn't understand it unless you read a book about it, which I totally have." "Sure." "Right," Rarity said dubiously. "Well, as fascinating as all this is, it doesn't really matter, violet or purple. She's still lavender." "It does too matter," Rainbow objected. "It means that you're wrong and I'm right." "Who cares?" Applejack scoffed. "I do." Girls," Twilight said, trying once more to scuttle the ongoing debate. "Maybe we should all take a deep breath and purple, violet, lavender. Oh, dear. This is so much fun." "I agree." Helpless, Twilight could only watch as the situation devolved into bedlam. Excuse me," Fluttershy said, with just enough volume to almost get everyone's attention as the argument continued. "I thought I'd let you know that I asked some of my bee friends to find some lilacs and bring them here to compare. Hopefully when they get here we can put this all to..." Fluttershy. Fluttershy turned around and gasped at the sight of a pale purple, earth pony covered head to with bees. Oh my goodness, they must have, never mind. Everyone, can you let go of lilac links, please? The sound of 1,000 bees buzzing in unison rent the air before the, so I guess that's supposed to be they, lifted like a cloud from the trembling pony. Are you okay? I'm so very sorry. That's all right. Can I go now? Oh, of course. I was hoping they could bring me some lilacs I could take some samples from, but I guess they got confused. Though you're kind of lilac colored, aren't you? Would you mind if I... Oh, wow. She must have someplace to be. She's running so fast. Bye? Commentary on the fragile nature of pony existence, Pinky concluded. So when you think about it, isn't everything a shade of pink? Okay. Silence greeted her after nearly 20 minutes of nonstop talking. Twilight worked her mouth without saying anything for a good 10 seconds before shaking herself. Wait, hold on. What was it you said about the Neyman hypothesis? Ponies have been trying to solve that problem for decades. Pinky sighed. Twilight. Weren't you listening? Well, nothing for it. I'll have to start all over again. No! Rainbow cried as she took a flying leap towards Pinky, only to plow muzzle first into the turf as Pinky smoothly stepped out of the way. A long time ago, in a village not too far away, my sisters and I were raised on a rock farm. Oh, boy, you meant all over again. Girls, if I could have your attention, please. Twilight glared at Rarity, who was currently holding a pair of color swatches against her coat. This sample is lavender, and this one is lilac. As you can clearly see, the lavender matches the coat perfectly. There is no greater proof than your own. Wait, hold on. Rarity pulled the swatches away, then held them up to the light for a moment with squinted eyes. Then sheepishly switched them. This one is lavender, and this one is lilac. Okay, look, Rainbow growled as she dragged an easel borrowed from the schoolhouse over to the group. I've laid it out nice and simple in this stupid chart. See this rainbow here? This is the color spectrum. And this color here at the bottom is violet. And this is a color wheel. And this color here at the bottom is purple. The color spectrum is used by, like, super smart scientists. The color wheel used by foals in art class. There, you get it now? Applejack didn't get it. Firstly, Rainbow, speaking of foals, you drew that chart with crayons. Rainbow huffed. Well, excuse me. Do you know how long it took me to draw this? Like 2 whole minutes. 2 minutes I could have spent taking a nap if you girls weren't being so loud. I mean, you could fly further away. Yeah, whatever. Secondly, at this, Applejack leaned in, squinting at the 2 drawings. I can't tell the difference. They look exactly the same. Rainbow threw her hooves up. Okay, so I couldn't find an actual violet crayon to use, so I used purple for both. Is that such a big deal? It is when I can't tell the darn difference on account of you using the same darn color. Fine, Rainbow growled, kicking the easel over. Forget the chart. Let me just... here we go. After dropping down on her flank, Rainbow scooped up her tail and held it in her hooves. See the streak of violet here in my tail? That's violet. Applejack looked at the rainbow-colored locks skeptically for a moment, then shrugged. Looks purple to me. Suddenly, Rainbow was in the air, wings snapping dangerously as she hovered inches from Applejack's face. Say that again, she snarled. Applejack smirked. Your hair is purple. The debate lasted for hours. Battle lines were drawn, and alliances were forged and broken. Friendships were strained to the limits as words and the occasional kick were exchanged, until, finally... All right, y'all agree? Applejack said, wiping the sweat from her brow, wincing as she rubbed her fresh black eye. A chorus of yeses and a single defiant no replied. As she stomped her hoof. That settles it, then. She ain't pink. Pinky crossed her hooves and pouted. Well, now that that's out of the way... Wait, she would have crossed her legs, not her hooves. Well, now that that's out of the way, we can... Wait, where's Twilight? Twilight slammed the door of the castle shut and pressed her back against it. Her horn lit up, and the next instant the door was festooned with chains as thick as her barrel. Finally, she let out a breath of relief. Bah! Twilight tumbled over onto her back and stared wide-eyed at Starlight Glimmer, who gave her a concerned look. Are you okay? Starlight asked. With a sigh of relief, Twilight got to her hooves and brushed herself off. I'm fine. You just surprised me, that's all. Uh-huh. Starlight raised an eyebrow skeptically. And the reason you barricaded the entrance to the Castle of Friendship and look like you're ready to curl up under your bed? Twilight scoffed. What do I look like, a filly? I'm not going to hide under my bed. I'm going to hide under my blankets like an adult. Twilight slapped the hoof across her muzzle. But it was too late. Aha! Starlight pointed to the hoof accusingly. There is something going on. Tell me. Twilight stared helplessly at her student for a moment before letting out a sigh. Maybe Starlight could figure this out. By the time she finished explaining everything, Starlight was shaking her head. I can hardly believe the girls would be so silly about this. They really should know better. Twilight finally relaxed. At last, someone who understood. She really couldn't have picked a better student. I mean, look at you. You're clearly mauve. Or not. Silly Starlight. Maud isn't a color. She's my sister. Of course Pinky would show up. And apparently she pronounced it mauve instead of mauve. Twilight's eyes widened. You know what? Really quickly here. Why is my keyboard so slow? Okay, so here's what I want to do.
Mauve.
So the dictionary and I agree on this one. Anyway, Twilight's eyes widened, and she whipped around to see the rest of her friends walking through the open doorway, ducking under the chains that still spanned the gap. What? How did you girls get in? The chains? Applejack coughed. Sugar Cube, you realize these doors open out, right? Twilight stared at the doors for a long moment, and clapped a hoof to her forehead. No, Pinky, mauve, Starlight corrected, ignoring the prior exchange. It's a color, kind of a pale purple, and it's the same color as Twilight. Wrong, Rainbow objected. Purple still isn't a color, so you were all still wrong. Rainbow, you picked up a purple crayon because you couldn't find a violet one. Starlight rolled her eyes. Fine, it's a pale violet. Happy? No, they're not interchangeable. You can't just... Darn it, Rainbow, not this again. Starlight, darling, come away from those two. You can join Fluttershy and I discussing things like proper adults. But you were shouting too, Rarity. Did you say something, Fluttershy? No. Pinky giggled. Wow, now that I don't have a pony in this race, it all seems kind of silly. What do you think, Twilight? Oh, wow, you look like you're on fire again. You haven't done that since season 1. Season 1. Feeling Pinky keen. And what did we learn? Just because something is obvious to you doesn't mean it's always true, Applejack replied as she pawed at the soot-stained floor. Even if you know more about something than someone else, that doesn't mean you're always right, Rainbow droned. Even when you're right. Don't make a messy situation messier just because it looked like fun, Pinky said with a sheepish smile. Oh, sorry, Twilight, Fluttershy said. Whatever you call it, though, your coat is a really pretty color. It's true, Twilight Rarity agreed. You have a most royal coloration, such that I'm almost jealous. Oh, don't be like that, Rarity. You got yourself a very pretty white thing going on. Why, thank you, darling. Really, I only wish it wasn't so difficult to keep clean. Twilight finally allowed herself a genuine smile. It seems her friends weren't the only ones acting silly. Pinky, Rarity, Applejack, Fluttershy, Rainbow, they might be as crazy as the rest of Ponyville sometimes, but they really were the best friends she could ask for. I always thought Rarity was more pearl-colored, Fluttershy half whispered. Why? What? Pinky yelped, turning to face the now cringing Fluttershy as she were crazy. She's obviously alabaster. Ugh, you're both wrong, Rainbow groaned out. Can't you see she's ivory? Oh, wow, she really got far, far, far ahead. The best. My first story. I think it is your only one. My first story inspired by myriad ways people describe the color of our favorite ponies. Really well done. I much enjoyed it. There were points where I really had to stifle because I was laughing. All right. Oh, hold on. Yeah. Where did I hear this mauve pronunciation? It was involving a derby, like one of those ones you got to make the downhill racer car. And a couple of the characters got into an argument of the pronunciation of the color of all things. So somebody was saying mauve, somebody was saying mauve. So anyway, so A Horse of a Different Color is a very good story. I very much enjoyed reading that. Whoops, why did that happen? There. Very much enjoyed reading that, and would definitely recommend this to anybody else. It's a pretty good. There were a few little mistakes here and there, nothing story breaking or anything like that. It just like the first sentence could leave you thinking that maybe English isn't the first language, but it's just a simple missing letter. And I was quite right to say that it didn't define the rest of the story, which was told really well. And I felt that Pinky was captured pretty effectively too. And that, at least for me, has always been very challenging to do. Oh, there's a story like this with Sweetie Belle too. Ooh, it's a long one. I don't want to read this on stream. But I'm gonna want to read this, so I'm gonna go ahead and open a tab with that one. The Brief Reign of Princess Twilight. Maybe. Let's see. I'm gonna look for something a little shorter than 3,000 words. I think. Oh, there we go. A Better Way to Be Dad. When Lord Tyrek, by Jade Ring. Oh my God, I love Jade Ring. Jade Ring is an amazing author. Read a lot of that work. The Dear Sweetie Belle continuity. I'm big into that. Unfortunately, the author kind of burned out on it, and well, they certainly they uploaded the whole summary of the remaining plans they had for the story. It was too much, so they moved on to other stuff that they were passionate about, and that's cool. Still a great writer. When Lord Tyrek asks Cozy Glow what seems like a normal question, he has no idea of the floodgates that will open, and how his relationship to the little villain might ultimately be changed. A small bit of villainous sweetness inspired by both the dynamic of the evil trio and the cover art by Soundwave Pie. Which, was that this? Or is that this? All right, same picture. Excellent artwork. Very good shit. Top freaking notch. All right, let's go ahead and. I'm sorry, let me show you Jade Ring's profile. It's a really amazing stories that run the gamut. They are entirely an emotional roller coaster, have been for me. In particular, man, there's a lot of them. Looks like Jade Ring continues to go strong. Just called it, quits because that's where he was at. But here it is, the Dear Sweetie Belle continuity. All these excellent stories. These are only 5 out of the whole thing. These are the letters that they said. There's a whole TV tropes for this continuity by Jade Ring. All right, and I've read almost all of it. Almost. I do have to catch up, and then I do. Once I have caught up, I actually want to read the summary just to see where it was supposed to go and if anything's supposed to get better, because it's kind of a depressing story. It's dark. It's supposed to be depressing. What just happened? Oh, darn it. All right, so 101. Excuse me. Nice. Wow, man. No. 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 Why did the mouse just do that? Stinking mouse. Why did it hop over one little measure to the left? Ah, boy. Where is this thing? Past, future, and present. Oh, okay. That's Cozy Glow. Architects of Fear. Shameless is the app. Nope. Nope. Not my fault. Change of perception. Oh my goodness, where did the story I was about to read go? No, I'm not reading any Clop. I'm not 100%. I didn't know that Jadering wrote anything of the sort. Oh my god. 20. A moment in time. Let's see. Right place, right time. I'm only calling those stories. They look like plot based solely. I'm judging those books by their covers. Let's face it. But that's what it was called. Where are your parents? Now remember, I will find it. There it is. Oh, I'm an idiot. A Better Way to Be Dad. With the chapter, I guess, being Where Are Your Parents? Am I wrong? No, I'm right. Okay, good. All right, here we go. Where are your parents? Turek asked again when Cozy Glow didn't answer the first time. Cozy Glow looked at him from across the table around which the three villains had been enjoying a thankfully Grogar-free supper. Why do you ask? I'm simply curious, the centaur grunted as he returned to his stew. You haven't mentioned them once since you were imprisoned in Tartarus. I honestly don't remember Turek's voice all that well. I might have to go look it up on YouTube. He tapped his spoon against his bearded chin, eyes cast up at the ceiling. Come to think of it, you never mentioned them in any of your letters before either. Well, since he's going to be pressing the issue, then I guess I'm curious as well. Chrysalis pushed away her untouched bowl and lifted an eyebrow at the youngest member of the trio. Where are your parents? Let me just see something here. Okay. What? Whoa! Church. Oh, okay. There's different kinds of reverb that I can use. Hall? Okay. Valley. Hello! And this one is just room. And that's reverb off. I'm simply curious, the centaur. Oh, I already read that part. Cozy slowly stirred her stew for a moment. Why do you care? Chrysalis rolled her eyes. I don't care, but I can taste your bitterness all the way over here, and that, plus our big red friend's curiosity, has piqued my interest. That is the wrong piqued. For what it is worth, the correct piqued is Piqued. All right. The Changeling Queen smirked. Have some mommy and daddy issues, do we? The little Pegasus chewed her bottom lip for a moment, watching the vegetables swim around in the broth. Tirek coughed awkwardly. If you really don't want to answer, then my parents, mom and dad, Cozy Glow took a deep breath as though preparing herself. My parents are a pair of business ponies in Manhattan. My mom's a high-ranking accountant in one of the medium-sized firms. My dad's a stockbroker. They work somewhere around 19 to 20 hours a day, 6 days a week. That seventh day is the one day they usually spend going to social gatherings where they can suck up to their superiors. I can pass entire days without seeing either of them. If it weren't for the old mare that comes to cook and clean every 2 days, I probably would have starved to death by now. Hold on a sec. When I see math, I have to do math. Call it a neuroses. I don't really give a damn. But that was 16 to 20 hours a day. That's quite crazy. 6 days a week. That allows you anywhere from 4 to 8 hours of sleep, plus Sunday, which you apparently spend socializing. So that is 96 to 120 hours of work a week. Out of 168. That leaves only 48 hours total besides those hours of work. So that's a crazy schedule to hold on to. Which means you're working, you're getting money, and you're not really getting to enjoy it at all. Sorry I asked, Turek muttered, trying to return to his dinner. Cozy slammed her hoof into the table, rattling the bowls and cutlery and making the two much older rogues jump. Well, you did, so now you're getting the whole story. She looked up from her stew, pure hate in her eyes. Did you know that I didn't even want to attend Twilight's stupid little school? They heard about it and sent in my information without even telling me. I didn't even know I was leaving until my bags were already packed. I begged them not to send me away, but they didn't listen. They didn't even look at me when they told me how good an experience I would have. They didn't even hug me before I got on the train. With a furious cry, she picked up her bowl and hurled it at the wall, where it shattered, spreading broth and vegetables all over the surface. She sat for a moment, breathing hard, before looking back at her evil compatriots. Tears filled her eyes. They never even sent me a note in Tartarus. She flapped her wings and was gone, the echo of her sobs marking her path to her chambers. Well, it's quite something, if those are real and sincere tears. Chrysalis snorted and cut her eyes. I'm sorry, sentence on. Yes, Chrysalis snorted and cut her eyes at Tirek. And that's why I never ask personal questions. It's so much simpler to eat emotions than to actually have to listen to them. That's a very Chrysalis response. An hour or so later, Cozy Glow heard a knock on her door. Go away, she muttered, snuggling deeper into her pillow. The door opened and Tirek stepped through. The day a child orders me around is the day I have tea party with Discord's little yellow pony friend. He crossed the room and sat beside her bed. He grit his teeth and exhaled hard. His jaw clenched as he tried to force out the unfamiliar phrase. I'm sorry that I brought up your parents, I mean. Cozy looked over at him and blinked. What? What? I've never heard you apologize before. I know. Did you know words can taste strange? The centaur stuck out his tongue and scraped it jokingly. You shouldn't get used to hearing that, by the way. Cozy Glow laughed and sat up. I'm sorry I freaked out. It all just kind of hit me at once, you know. I hadn't really thought about them for a while because I've been having so much fun with you and Chrissy. Call me that again, and I'll eat you alive, Chrysalis called as she passed the door on the way to her own chambers. Cozy and Tirek shared a small laugh before settling back into silence. Tirek considered leaving, but decided that now was as good a time as any to ask the question that had been bothering him for quite some time. I need to ask you... Wait, I'm Tirek, right? I need to ask you something, if that's all right. Yes? Why did you keep writing me? I mean, obviously you wanted to know about my theories on magic theft and the like, but even after I told you everything in the first two letters, you still kept writing me. Why? Cozy Glow smiled. It's silly. Tirek raised an eyebrow as he sized up the preteen Pegasus that had nearly conquered Equestria. Everything about you is silly. True, the filly shrugged and looked up at him, because, well, you were older, and a male. Continue. Okay. Cozy Glow shrugged again and looked away. Getting advice from you felt like, I don't know, guidance, I guess. Fatherly advice, like you were my... She cut herself off before the word passed her lips, but even then she knew she'd said too much. Fatherly advice, Tirek murmured. It's dumb, I know. She looked up at the centaur with the sweetest smile she could muster. Not the mask she often used to get what she wanted, but an actual honest-to-goodness smile. You actually seemed to care about what I was planning. You urged to continue when I had my first few mishaps with the spells I needed. Your encouragement never stopped, and any time I felt like giving up or, actually making some friends, it was your voice I heard in my head, keeping me on the right course. She hugged her pillow close. I know you find me irritating, but hanging out with you and Chrissy... A single blazing green eye appeared from the darkness beyond the door. Hanging out with you and Chrysalis, the eye slowly backed away. Hanging out with you two is the closest I've ever felt to actually having parents. You especially have made me into the baddie I am today, and I couldn't be happier. She giggled as she shook her head. Now, how messed up is that? Incredibly messed up, he smirked. They'll be writing psychology books about you. Undoubtedly. Cozy Glow nodded. I can see it now. Cozy Glow syndrome, wherein you find paternal figures in ancient evil creatures. Tirek chuckled and then looked away. Did I ever tell you about my brother? Scorpan? She waved off his shocked look. They teach us about you two in school. That's how I knew to write you. I like how this goes to explain how she knew about it. Anyway, my evil deeds are the subject of children's education. Lovely. Turek sighed. Scorpion and I were not brothers by blood, but by choice. We were both alone in the world, and it was only by trusting one another that we were able to survive. His betrayal burned at me for centuries, and not just because he ruined our plans for conquest. It was because he was the only family I'd ever known. He was the only one I'd ever had. I had no parents, no mate. He slowly placed one huge hand on Cozy Glow's small head. No children. Cozy Glow smiled at the touch and unconsciously rubbed her mane against his palm. You're an irksome, loathsome little maniac, Cozy Glow. Turek smiled as he ruffled his mane, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't like that. He took her chin in his hand and turned her face up to his. If you really want to see me as some sort of father figure, then who am I to argue? So, I'd be your daughter? Turek's lip curled. Let's stick with daughter figure. I'll take it. Cozy Glow's grin threatened to cut her head in half. That's wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Her little wings buzzed as she launched herself for a hug, but Turek's hand caught her easily and held her at arm's length. Too much? Hugging's a bit much, yes. He carefully sat her back on the bed. And you can't start calling me Dad or anything like that. Not even Big Daddy Wreck? I will drain what little magic you have and feed your husk to the changeling if those syllables ever leave your mouth again. Cozy Glow laughed at the threat before reaching for something on the boulder she was using for a nightstand. Could I ask for something else? Turek snorted. Haven't you already pushed your luck enough? It's just, there's something nobody's ever done for me. Something I think father figures are supposed to do for their daughters. She handed the object she grabbed to him. Daughter figures, I mean. And what's that? Turek examined the item's cover. Could you tuck me in and read me a bedtime story? Turek examined the book closely and considered. Finally, he cut his eyes at the filly. Not a word of this to the changeling. Yay! Cozy Glow dove under the covers, adjusted her pillow, snuggled up to the severely damaged Twilight Sparkle plush, and looked up expectantly. And what pretty pony fairy story am I reading tonight? Turek asked as he cracked open the book. I like the one about the three little ponies who get lost in the woods and get terrorized by the headless horse. Turek smiled. I think I'm going to enjoy this as well. As Turek began to read, Chrysalis continued to listen from just outside the door. This was a tale she was quite familiar with. She'd read it to many of her prey over the years. As the centaur read to the filly, the changeling thought about what the two had talked about. She'd felt the genuine affection from the pair, the taste so much stronger than friendship. She smiled sadly as she savored the taste on the back of her tongue before it disappeared. She hadn't tasted paternal love in so long, not since... She stiffened as she thought back to her hive, her own children, and they'd betrayed her, and not just her, but everything their race stood for. They were traitors and cowards and her own children. She slumped against the wall as sadness filled her ashen heart. She was all alone now. All the wooden effigies and evil magic spells couldn't change that. She'd never feel that sort of love ever again. Except, while Cozy Glow hadn't actually said anything, hadn't she felt the same sort of love for herself that the little one had for Turek? Not as strong, of course, but it was still there, a seed waiting to bloom. If Cozy Glow saw Turek as her father figure, was she also beginning to see the queen of the changelings as a mother figure? Chrysalis' racing thoughts drowned out Turek's voice from the other side of the door. She recalled how wonderful it had felt when they'd succeeded in stealing Hrogar's bell. Friendship was a disease, but perhaps the three of them could share something stronger. Cozy Glow was irritating, but she was totally devoted to the forces of evil with a hatred for ponies that rivaled her own. She could be guided, shaped, and molded into something truly terrible and beautiful to behold. Who better than a mother to do that? And what about Lord Turek? He was a force to be reckoned with, one of the few besides herself to have victories over the princess. He was immensely powerful, and his ability to steal both the magic and essence from a pony was a perfect complement to her own appetites. And not to mention the door swung open, and Turek stepped into the hallway. He looked down at her, his beard brushing against his broad chest. His powerful arms flexed as he closed the door behind him. You're still here? You're still here? He asked as his raspy but still powerful voice. Chrysalis felt her dead heart give a single beat. She panicked. I do as I please, he shrieked, only barely registering the cracking of her voice. I am Chrysalis, queen of the changelings. She stared at him, tensed. Good night! She was gone, down the hall to her chamber in a flash. Tarek blinked before shrugging his shoulders. He'd had quite enough strangeness for one day. Just before heading for his chambers for his 10th workout of the day, he turned once again to Cozy Glow's door. Smiling, he placed a hand on the wood. Good night, my little monster, he whispered. Your nightmares have no idea what they're in for. that's a great line right there. Author's note for Ezra, my own little monster. Ah, how sweet. Yeah, I love Jade Ring's writing because he does these really dark things, but he really touches on some great, lighter, on the surface feelings that dig deeper, and it's just amazing. That's all there's really is to it. So, yeah. Wow. Amazing. All right, I'm going to wrap this up now. I have been going